Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boomer Bus channel. I'm your host, Terry. Today we're talking about Loki episode 1 on Disney Plus. Real good show. I mean, we had WandaVision that kicked things off. Then we had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think was a nice follow-up. And now we got Loki. There's been a little bit of time in between, but they feel nicely spaced out. But Loki, this was a show that I don't think we knew a whole lot about. I mean, you look at the comments, you look at the trailers and everything, and we knew that it was obviously the Loki that escaped the Endgame and something to do with the people that take care of time. And so that's really all we saw. We saw a lot of stuff, but it was out of context. And so I went into this, I don't know. I wouldn't say I had big hopes one way or the other. I was just kind of along for the ride. Now, I did have a question, much like Black Widow, of what are we really going to gain from going in the past? Now, technically, and I know that's kind of a pun, technically this is currently happening, somewhat, because it's around Endgame, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier is after Endgame, so is what's that other one called? WandaVision. However, because of the way time works, we don't really know where this is. We just know it's sometime between what happened in Endgame and after that. So, but still, you're dealing with a past character where we already know their fate. And so it was just to me okay, what is this really going to add to the bigger story? And I think right away we see that this has the potential to add to that story. And it has the potential to see Tom Hiddleston's Loki continue on. Now, obviously it's set up much like Black Widow is to finish the character off. But I think more so than Black Widow, this has an avenue where with time and multiverse, he could continue. And so a lot of people are kind of theorizing already that the TVA is not going to be around after this show is over. And so we'll kind of see, but it was immediately interesting once you were told that, okay, this is firmly right in the middle of the story that we've been telling. And I know Kevin Feige said all the shows connect, but this felt more like Black Widow to me. And I could be wrong, but I really still don't see what Black Widow is going to add to the story, even though we know some of the people from that movie are going to show up in the newer movies. But still, what does it really add? And so it seems like it could add a lot. Now, we get a whole episode almost of really explaining what the TVA is. And honestly, to me, it still doesn't quite make sense. I know what they are, but how it works doesn't quite make sense to me. And I'm hoping that they kind of go into that a little more, because the way they set it out is everything that happened besides Loki taking the Tesseract was supposed to happen. Kind of like Loki said, the Avengers messed up the timeline. They was they were supposed to do that. You wasn't supposed to leave. So that would mean, and this is why I don't like the time travel stuff, especially with the MCU, which I enjoy the MCU a whole lot, and people fight me on this. They got major plot holes. Their writing is really, really weak story-wise sometimes. And time travel is just a big plot hole most of the time in general. And so I didn't like the combination. I really thought they would be more creative in Endgame. So Endgame has its own problems. Now you add the TVA, that adds even more problems. So the TVA is basically saying that Tony Stark, undercover, was supposed to pick up the case, the briefcase with the Tesseract. He was supposed to get hit by the door by the Hulk, and the Tesseract was supposed to slide back over. But for some reason, Loki wasn't supposed to take it when nobody was looking, because according to them, everything the Avengers did was a part of the plan. Loki didn't make the Hulk hit Tony. He didn't set any of that up. He just capitalized on what was happening. And so, according to their logic, all that was supposed to happen, but I guess Loki was just supposed to stand there, look at the Tesseract, and not do anything. Doesn't make sense to me. And again, like I said, I hope they kind of explain more. And it's very possible, again, some people believe that there is no one true timeline. And I forgot what they called it. I don't think it's the holy timeline, but it's the ultimate time, whatever it is. Some people believe that's not true, that, either the timekeepers or the TVA is lying about that, and that, there is free will in different timelines. And maybe that's the case, or maybe they explain like that situation more. But as of right now, I don't know. This is causing more problems with the time stuff. But outside of that, I really loved everything about this episode. I liked how, it was kind of, and I heard somebody else say this, it kind of felt like Twilight Zone-ish a little bit, where they really had like all this retro equipment, even though it did like crazy stuff. It just looked retro. What it really reminded me of was the organization in the Umbrella Academy. I can't remember what their name were. And I know TVA was in the comics. I don't know if Umbrella Academy was first. I don't know. But I remember even in the trailers, I was like, that kind of looks familiar. And then watching it, how it's like they take care of time, but it's like this bureaucratic, real organization. I was like, man, this really reminds me of that company from the Umbrella Academy. And so I like that feel, but it had the MCU feel to it, because Captain, everybody says that now. I think that's a common mistake. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for the most part, it was a very just, down to earth, grounded feeling. When Falcon wasn't in his wings, everybody was just kind of in normal clothes. Everything was just real grounded. But in WandaVision, you had different eras, but it was real grounded. Nothing was really crazy until that last episode. And so with this, it was more fantastical, which I feel like is more like the MCU. And not to say that those other ones weren't good or they weren't like the MCU, but this felt more in line with what you're used to. You're seeing the visuals, the great visuals and the different aesthetics. And I like that. It just it made me feel a little more at home. Excuse me, at home. Oh, I got choked up right there. And then on top of that, I liked how they still went to the character level, which these Disney Plus shows should be doing, because you have the time to really do it. And so they went a little more into the psychology of Loki, because Owen Wilson's character is trying to figure out the psychology of Loki so they can hunt this other variant. And in doing so, you have to really push Loki to be open, which he's not going to do. So he eventually had to, show him his life and all that. And I think we all knew that was coming, but the way it was done with the music, the acting, Tom Hiddleston was great. I thought it was superb acting, because he had to return to the mindset of a character that he hasn't played in years. I mean, that first Avengers was over 10 years ago almost, or close. And again, you got to realize Loki's had a character arc, a true arc. He evolved over these years. And so he has to return back to that mindset. And then he has to react to footage and stuff that he actually did and knows what happens, but he has to react like it's the first time. And I think he did a great job. I think the acting was just amazing. But Owen Wilson's character, Morbius or whatever his name, he was interesting because he didn't pull any punches. And even though he's on Loki's side, he wasn't soft about it. He really kept poking and prodding him, like, you killed your mom. You gonna kill me like you killed your mom? Like, he was real, pushing him. And so an uncomfortable moment for us with Loki was even more uncomfortable because he was antagonizing him. And I just thought it was good. It was really good. But true Loki fashion. And I saw him steal that thing. Like, they didn't even try to hide that, which is fine. I like that. I don't like when they just do a quick cut and it's like, how in the world did they steal that? Like, you really saw him steal the thing. And I like Loki kind of being up to his own tricks, being a survivor. But the one thing I did not like is the Infinity Stone stuff. because this is a storytelling problem with a lot of franchises, especially the superhero genre. When you do this threat is going to, or they threaten all the existence or everything we know can be lost. When you do that, you leave little room for where you can go. And so they did this with the Infinity Stone. In the universe you created, this has been the central threat that we've seen. Everything is on the line with the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet. But now, because you're finished with that, you got to go bigger. And so I think there's ways to do it, but then the way they do it is like, oh, the Infinity Stones, they're just toys here. And so, and people are like, well, they're in the TVA, so it's just temporary. No, like Loki literally says the exact point that they're trying to get across. He says the TVA is a greater power than the Infinity Stones. And so while you make them just toys, you just delegitimize, I think, retroactively everything that we've been building so far in the MCU. Everything that we've come to know, you just kind of trivialized it. And again, it's one thing to discover a new power or something, but they used Infinity Stones as a way to show you, oh, look how powerful this is. They were putting over with the Infinity Stones. They stepped on the back of the Infinity Stones to prop up the TVA. And I didn't like that because you just trivialized everything else. And so, again, we'll see. Now, obviously, the Infinity Stones didn't work there. And so it is powerful. As much as people think the TVA might not be what it seems, whatever the power source is, it is very powerful. And again, it controls all existence, or the multiverse could destroy all existence, blah, blah, blah. So I had an issue with that, but everything else, I like that. And so I'm really intrigued. I think the MCU does something to me that really sets them apart. They really just uniquely stylized their stuff. So like when Doctor Strange came out, it was like, okay, well, how is that going to look powers wise? And they do like that golden flare type thing. It's very unique. And then with this time thing, they use the batons that slow down time, or they do the little timeline reset and the way it looks. You even think about the Eternals, what we saw in the trailer, like their powers is this gold kind of like ivy type thing. And everything, from, even though I don't like all the stuff in Black Panther, but the way the vibranium and all that works, like everything's very unique. It's not, kind of cheap. It's very thought out. And I think they did that really well with this too, just how the powers and stuff visually look. So I'm excited. I think it's pretty obvious, but some people are still guessing. It's pretty obvious it's Lady Loki that they're chasing. And that seems to be a variant from some timeline. And I think this lends itself to the multiverse of madness in some way. I don't know if it's as simple as the TVA gets destroyed and the multiverse runs wild. I don't know. I don't know if Loki stops Lady Loki, but in the end, he does something to escape. I don't know how it works out, but I do think this in some way is, if it's not going to directly influence the next movies, I think it's at least setting up the idea so we know what this multiverse type thing is. So I'm excited. It definitely hooked me. It was balanced between giving us information and really giving us a moment to live with this character again and live with some of the decisions and everything and see where he's on now. And they had to, because Loki's a wild card. And I think they're going to let him be a wild card, but they had to ground him. They had to humble him because he couldn't be the Loki we knew from Avengers and do this show. He had to really be put in his place to see that he's not what he thought he was. And so he's going to have to reconceptualize himself. But then once he gets the opportunity to mess around, we'll see what he actually does. So that's it for me. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you thought. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I haven't done this in a while. Remember, if you heard it, here's official canon.